guys, welcome to Here We Go. I'm your host Scrivo, and as you can see today, we are going through Balance Dataslate. So I'm going to go through all the key changes, good and bad, and then run through a sample list of what I think might be wrong, might be right, things that I think you might see a little bit more of as a result. Right, so let's just get straight into it, guys, because there's no messing about here. Right, so the big changes are for Green Tide, the detachment. There is now the mob mentality rule is now boys have a 6-up invuln or a 5-up invuln if the unit is 10 or more models. So that is a change from it just being 5-up by default. So I think this is a quality of life thing because it, as much as it was really cool and really good, it could be a little bit oppressive if people went into the big skew. So this way, I think it then generates more diversity in how people play the lists rather than just going, right, I'm just going to spam the boys. Because yes, that is what Green Tide is, but for the health of the game, it was probably a bit mean. And then moving on, similar sort of thing, Tide and Muscle stratagem. It's +1 to charge and reroll charges if you're 10 or more models. So by default, it's just +1 to charge, but now if you're 10 or more models, you get the reroll charge benefit as well. So it's a side grade, maybe a slight debuff, but I think, again, it's just making it slightly less obnoxious. So I think we would have seen if Bully Boy got a nudge down and Green Tide wasn't touched, it would have been equally a problem. And I'm kind of glad that they've kind of preempted that, because I'm guessing from seeing kind of some of the data out there, we were seeing Bully Boys and Green Tide kind of being pushed forward more aggressively. So this is hopefully toning it down so that then there's an argument for things like War Horde or even Cult of Speed. Right. So the other bit of Green Tide was the Go Get 'em stratagem, which is the surge move. So anytime you were shot after the shooting had been resolved, you could roll a d6 and move. Now the reroll of that is centered around if there's 10 or more models in your unit. So again, it's just qualifying that you need to have lots of models. All these changes have made me straight away think about one of my favourite enhancements that I was normally putting on things like Mega Knobs or Knobs, which is the Raucous Warcaller. So the unit always counts as 10 or more models for the detachment rule or stratagems. So I think we'll see that in most lists, and instead of it being on things like Knobs, we might see it on a big unit of 20 boys, led by a war boss and a pain boy, because then you're putting all your eggs in one basket, you're minimising the risk of it. But we'll see. I could be wrong there, but I like the fact that that is a tech piece that now has even more value. So there we go. Right, datasheet changes. One big one. So Mega Knobs Feel No Pain during the war is now a 5-up Feel No Pain rather than a 4-up Feel No Pain. And it's a shame, but if you look at any other army, their big hammer piece has normally a 5-up Feel No Pain. 4-up Feel No Pains are normally relegated to things like characters or a once per game kind of stratagem sort of thing. So it being toned down, yes, it's a complete debuff to the unit, but it now means that when you look at how you build a list, especially in Bully Boys, yes, you're going to take Mega Knobs, but now there's an argument of like, are their points worth it compared to just taking some normal knobs or units led by a war boss? So again, it's creating more diversity in how the lists are going to be composed. I still think you'll see Bully Boys because a 5 Feel No Pain is not bad for 2 turns, especially when essentially you're going to have that on these big bricks that are just going to roll into people. So I think you can't say the Bully Boy build is dead. I just think it's going to change. So like with all of the changes across other factions, I think it is a recalibration data slate. It's not killing how orcs currently play, it's just you're having to adapt. And I know a lot of players struggle with adapting, and to me I thrive off it. It's just like change is always a constant. So right, and then points changes. This all makes perfect sense to me. So Snickrot's got up to 95 points. I was seeing him and putting him in most of my lists, so not surprising. Mega Knob's going up to 40 points per model. That stings a little bit with the debuff, but at the same time, I think this is just to nudge it so that you don't go, I'm taking 16 Mega Knobs or even up to the 18. It's to discourage that. And at the end of the day, you don't want to see every list taking 3 max of a really good unit, because that tells me that there is some sort of internal balance in the book wrong, which I'm pleased for. So 240 points for 6 of them. It's a big ask. It means your brick with a war boss is going to over 300 points, but you can still afford it. It just means you then have to lose a little bit of flexibility in your scoring units if you're going to keep your list as similar as what it was before the slate. And then we've got the Pain Boss and the Pain Boy both going up. So the Pain Boss has gone up to 70 points and the Pain Boy up to 80 points. Again, this is to make the Green Tide sort of waves tone down a little bit, I think. So I hadn't really seen many Pain Bosses, but I think people are going to start teching to that anyway for if we're going to see a little bit more monster and vehicle kind of heavy lists, because obviously you want Beast Snagger Boys going in there, and a Pain Boss leading them isn't the worst. The Weird Boy going up 65 points doesn't surprise me either, because in most of my lists I was taking at least one, because him teleporting around was a great mission piece. So I'm not sure how useful he'll be moving forward into the new mission pack. There's still a place for him, and obviously joining him onto a unit of boys, whether it's a 10 or a 20, it's slinging it forward, being a right pain in the backside. And then if you're in a detachment where you can get +1 to your charge or re-roll your charges, fantastic. Right, straight on to my test list. So this is a Warhorde detachment list, because I've been kind of umming and ahhing, because when chatting to a lot of my kind of teammates, having sustained hits in combat, especially when you're playing in Bully Boys, you've got all these saws with rerolls and stuff, and you're fishing for all these like hits. The one thing that would kind of tip it over for me a lot of the time was sustained hits, and I really liked it. But ironically, I hated this as a detachment in the Index. I was not a fan. So what I've done here is I've tried to capture what I think I'm going to try first. So I don't think this is a be-all and end-all, the perfect list to take based off the slate. This is me trying to figure out how I recalibrate as a player. So it's got a war boss in Mega Armor with 5 of his lads in a truck, because again, the trucks have had that slight increase in their kind of flexibility that now if you're pivoting them to get them out of a ruin, you pivot them once and then you just drive as if you're not pivoting again, because you get every other pivot is for free. So I think that's a real helpful change for Orks, that yes, the knobs themselves have lost some survivability, but if their truck can get somewhere a lot easier and tuck in and be hidden, that adds to their survivability, because they're not having this situation where you don't quite tuck in and they can just shoot you and then they pop out and they die. I've then got a war boss with Headwhopper's Kill Chopper, just 'cause I love that enhancement. It's just a bit killy. Put it in with the 20 boys, so then he's just flinging forward. He's got all those ablative wounds. They're just going to tar pit something up. I would like to have put that in a battle wagon, but I couldn't quite squeeze one in. I got then 10 boys with a war boss just as it comes. I wanted them in a truck. Couldn't quite justify that as well. The option is obviously in this list, you could put the knobs, the 5 knobs with the war boss just on foot, especially if they're relatively safe like that, and put the boys in instead. Depends what sort of level of pressure you want. I've then put Zogrod Wartschnagger with 20 grots, because I really like the idea of that stupid screening, like that scout that just goes forward and goes, we're just going to be a problem, and then they're just throwing stuff at you. It's nasty, and I love it. I've done... This was the one that I thought was the most interesting kind of thing to utilise, is using the new truck, kind of their movement changes, putting a beast boss with 10 beast snagger boys in it, giving them cunning but brutal, so they can fall back and charge. So I liked the idea of this, that they get in, kill a vehicle or something, then tag something else, just to be an annoyance, but then they're not stuck in that combat if the combat doesn't resolve in your opponent's turn. So just having it kind of then, they've got that flexibility of repositioning themselves, because they're meant to be this little piece that goes in and deals with vehicles and monsters. I like them to not be stuck in combat, because we've seen it with Orks, being body blocked or kind of tagged with stuff can be a right pain, and hopefully that gives them flexibility. You'll notice there isn't a weird boy in this list. I couldn't afford to squeeze one in, and I made the choice to put Snickrot in, because I think having a lone op that can just, once per turn, shunt himself wherever he needs to be is probably better out of the two. I think I'd like to still have both, but you got to make concessions with what you're doing. So yeah, he's still there. I think he's still going to be really useful. And then we've got 10 Gretchen, just to do that normal thing that they do, where they sit in kind of a side ruin, just being a pain. Probably putting those ones on your home objective if it's a protected one, just to generate that CP, because as we know, CP is vital. Then the 10 commandos, they'll have all the bells and whistles, the distraction grot, the squig bomb, all the cool stuff, because you put them forward, they're a tar pit, they screen out, they stop some scouting, it's great. We've got then 5 Storm Boys. I still think you need to sneak in some Storm Boys because mission play is mission play. And then this is the thing that I have been dabbling with. I've not put it on the table yet, and so I'm really keen to do because I own too many Deathcopters. So to me, I love the idea of 2 units of these, because the one thing that people always, especially in previous editions, discounted was how choppy they can be in combat. So if they're going into just your basic little MSU unit of little elven bodies, those spinning blades can cause a mess. So, and also a bit of shooting, it just gives a little bit of something. I'm not sure what else I would change. So there is a few options. Like, obviously, I like that of putting in a death roll at hard case battle wagon, especially if you can put 20 boys into it. The 20 boys could also be split down. I do like the idea of having a big brick that just kind of slides around one side of the board and just is a distraction whilst the rest of the army goes and does its thing. The other option is to put in some more knobs. I really like the idea of these little MSU Warboss and knobs units, very much like the Chaos Space Marines did with the Chosen, or you've got like Assault Intercessors, obviously without all that re-rolling mechanics, but just the fact that they're a little bit killy is pretty cool. And that unit having sustained hits, spicy. Right, guys, let me know in the comments what you would put into a list and what you think is your biggest winner chicken dinner of the Orks. Thank you for tuning in. As per usual, please hit the like button down below. If you don't subscribe to 6++, please subscribe. And if you really like us and you're already subscribing and you've already liked it, you can become a YouTube member, and that means you get to have some of these videos early. You get to join our secret little bit of our Discord where we reveal things early, we do polls, and we just hang out, and it's pretty cool. So until next time, guys, wah.